Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jan Szerbiński. The powerful protests movement in Serbia has made yet another attempt to reach out to the European Union for support, with students holding a marathon across Europe to make their voices heard in Brussels. Yet many claim that so far the EU has been oddly reticent in its dealings with Serbia's leadership, suggesting the desire for stability and possibly also vital business interests may hinder a more principled approach to rule of law in the Balkan nation. Joining us here today is Nikola Ćurčin, Vice President of the Independent Teachers Union of Serbia. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello.
So let's begin by saying that what is remarkable about this movement is that it is not linked to any major political party. Instead, it is a grassroots movement led by students, teachers, academics. Can you tell us more about how this was achieved without major political backers being present?
Well, we have this students movement that have been very, very successful because they are using grassroots democratic methods of decision making. So they are actually doing these plenary sessions where they discuss a lot of things, and when they make a decision, they back this decision. So this is some sort of a direct democracy approach. And also, there is a lot of students, there is a lot of parents, there is a lot of teachers. So this education is very close to a major part of people in Serbia, and people understand this and they want to support this.
So now, when looking at the response from the European Union, because obviously the movement wants to reach out to the EU, it wants to present its views there. What would you say has been the response so far? Are you satisfied with the way the EU is approaching this political crisis in Serbia?
Well, it depends of the people from the EU that have been giving statements and working. I think it's going the right way. It has taken, from our point of view, a lot of time because these protests are actually more than 6 months long. But I think this that it's going finally in the right way, and the EU is now seeing that this is really important because it's backing the basic values of democracy, anti-corruption, rule of law. We have this visit. I think it's a very important visit by Mrs. Kallas, that is also visiting the entire Western Balkans region, and it will be very important to send a message. Because when you have this kind of authoritarian regime like in Serbia and you leave it unchecked, you can expect that this kind of politicians and policies will spread in the region. So we expect a very direct and very strong support for the rule of law, anti-corruption in Serbia.
So how do you think the European Union should really deal with Aleksandar Vucic? The problem with him is that he is trying to maintain good dealings with both the EU and Russia, having recently traveled to the infamous Victory Day parade on the 9th of May. And he has been criticized for that by the EU. And yet the European Union also, apparently, is trying to approach the question of his rule in Serbia in a very delicate way. Do you think the European Union should be more forceful?
Well, I think it is very important to be strong in the things that make any government democratic. You see, business is a very important part, economic is a very important part. It is essential for the well-being of the people. But you cannot have the well-being of the people if you do not have a democracy. And I think this should be put first. So if there are any business deals, and Serbia is deeply connected with the EU, 70% of our trade exchanges with the EU, we are actually through these years very deeply integrated in education like Erasmus and things like that. But we really need to have a political government that respects democracy. And when some decisions are made, they need to be made based on rule of law. And I think there cannot be compromises about that, because any compromise made like this will backfire in the future.
Do you think the European Union is actually scared of what could happen if the government collapses? Does the EU prioritize stability and also the potential business dealings, such as regarding the lithium deposits, over the risk of the democratic process, with the argument being, well, if Mr. Vucic is not around, someone could come to power who is even worse than him, which of course some say is a poor excuse?
Yes, it is a poor excuse, especially now that we have practically political articulation by the students, and where the people that will probably be the carriers of the will of the people, because they have like 60% of the people now supporting them. These people are mainly for the academic institutions, and I don't think I think President Vucic has been in power for more than 10 years, and you know it's normal to change people on power. It's not it's a democratic way. So I think we are in the middle of Europe. I think we should be part of Europe in every aspect. So yes, the European Union need to make a stand here, because if it doesn't, it will allow many other things to unfold inside the European Union and both on the borders, when you have compromises with basic things like democracy and rule of law. So there can be no stability. It's a false stability if you let authoritarian governments grow.
And how did the Vucic government, the administration, how did they respond to recent events? There are reports that some of the students that were detained previously have now been released. That doesn't mean all of them. Also, he is trying to make concessions, changing the country's prime minister and all that. Would you say that this is going to convince anyone that he is indeed making concessions?
Well, there is now a very, very strong request for new elections. And in democracy, when you have this kind of a crisis that lasts for 6 months, the election is probably the best way to come out of this crisis. But now he's very holding back on we used to have a lot of elections when his rating was good. Now his rating is not good. And we are waiting for this. I think this will be the solution to the situation. So we need to have the new parliamentary elections. We need to see how the people are feeling right now and who are the new people that can actually make a progress in the country. So this I think is the best way. And I think in the end, this will be the solution of this crisis. And the sooner the better.
And you said new people who want to make progress in the country. Do you think that this is going to be basically just like, or should be, a reboot of the political scene? Do you want to see people who are not previously involved with politics, so not members of existing political parties, but rather representatives of civic society to actually, take responsibility for the country? Do you think this is the only way?
Well, we need to be fair to the opposition parties. They have been under heavy fire for years by media and any other way. So we need people that we can trust. And yes, the rating of the current opposition leaders is not high, but we need to have people that have confidence of the people. They are not the leaders currently of the parties. But in a couple of years, we will see, because we need rules to have normal political parties. So you cannot outrule the people that have been in, policy, politics. These are all active people. So I wouldn't say that we need to exclude. I think this should be a thing that will be done together. And I think the opposition parties and leaders will understand that now what is important is to have political rules in order to have a normal political life in Serbia, which hasn't been for a long time.
So one final question, do you think there is a risk that Vucic is going to double down and he's going to follow, for example, the way government in Georgia has been acting, with a crackdown on all opposition activities, with legislation intended to limit the scope of activities within society? Do you think this is a real risk at this stage?
Well, there is always a risk like that, but I think the Serbia is, let's say, physically much closer to the EU, and we are, as I said, very connected to the EU, and I don't think this would be seen well by the majority of the people. So I don't think if he had support of some parts of the people, large parts of the people, to go full authoritarian, he would probably do it. But he doesn't, and it's also a big risk for him, because if he would go that way, I think that the response from the people would be very strong.
Nikola Ćurčin was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight. And I'm Aleksandar Vucic. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news and commentary.